Good evening, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
All right, welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor live video. We do these videos every Sunday evening. Tonight we're going to be talking about a topic we get a lot of questions on. Probably at least 2 a week. We get questions about health insurance and how health insurance works as travelers. What are the options? What do? We get those questions all the time. So we realized today that we haven't actually gone over these things before. We haven't covered this topic specifically. We've hinted at it and we've mentioned it in other videos, but we've never specifically gone over this. So yeah, we want to talk all about health insurance, what we do, what the options are for travel therapists, and hopefully give you guys some insight. So Whitney's going to introduce us, and then I'm going to get this video shared in a few different groups, and then we'll jump into the topic.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank y'all for joining us tonight, and thank you to those that are watching later on the replay. My name is Whitney Aiken.
I'm Jared Kazaza.
And we are the faces behind Travel Therapy Mentor. We are both traveling physical therapists, and we've been doing travel PT for about 4.5 years now. So like Jared said, we get questions all the time about various topics affecting travel therapists, but one topic that people have questions about all the time is insurance. And we've also encountered new issues and barriers with this here in the past couple of years because if you guys have followed our story, we've started taking off a lot more time from work between contracts. We don't work consistently back-to-back contracts anymore, so we've had to modify our approach to how we do health insurance as travel physical therapists. So like Jared said, he's going to share our video in a couple groups so that more people can join in on the conversation, and then we'll get started talking about the topic tonight and kind of give you guys some insight on how this works as a travel therapist. So for those of you that are joining in live, we would love if you would say hello in the comments and let us know who you are. We are coming at you tonight from our car office because we are perpetually having issues with our Wi-Fi at our current assignment, but it's all good because we are using the gym Wi-Fi at our gym parked outside. So we've done this a couple weeks here, and it seems to work out fine. So that's why we're broadcasting from the car tonight. I also had a couple quick announcements. So we're going to get into talking about the topic for tonight in just a minute after Jared shares this in a couple groups. But I did want to go over a couple announcements for us. So we are going to be doing a couple of travel therapy meetups here in the next month or so. So you guys might have seen on our Facebook page, we announced that we're doing one in Raleigh in 2 weeks at, it's on Saturday, January 25th. So if anybody is in the Raleigh area, any travel therapists, Raleigh, North Carolina, any travel therapists, any third-year DPT students, any OT or speech therapist students in their final year of school, or any clinicians that are thinking about jumping into travel therapy that are in the Raleigh area, we would love for you to join us.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. We're planning on probably between 20 and 30 people. We'll have free drinks and then probably free pizza as well. So free pizza, free drinks, and free conversation. Pretty cool thing to come out to.
Yeah, so it'll be a fun time to meet up with some fellow travel therapists as well as some people that are thinking about doing travel therapy in the future. So if y'all are in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, please check out the event on our Facebook page, Travel Therapy Mentor Facebook page, and you can RSVP there. In addition to that, in February, we are going to be doing a travel therapist meetup in Denver at CSM, the National Physical Therapy Conference. So for all you PTs out there that are going to CSM, if you are interested in travel therapy or if you're a current travel therapist, we will be announcing soon the details of our meetup in Denver, but we will be doing kind of a happy hour type thing there as well.
Yep, free drinks as well. So if you guys are going to be in Raleigh or Denver, definitely let us know. We'll be making an event for that Denver one soon.
Yeah. So I see that a bunch of you guys have hopped on. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching, I see Veronica is on, George. If you guys are watching, we would love if you'd say hi in the comments and let us know who you are. Are you a current traveler? Are you a student? Are you a clinician that's thinking about starting travel therapy? Just say hi in the comments and let us know. And we're going to start talking about our topic for tonight, which is how do travel therapists go about getting health insurance?
Yep. So if you guys are completely unfamiliar, we'll start kind of from the beginning. Some people, we get questions from, they don't realize that travel therapists, the companies actually offer health insurance options. Many people will think that travel therapy is like a 1099 thing, and there's no benefits offered, and that you pay self-employment taxes and all that. That's not the case. Very few people actually do travel therapy as independent contractors. So these travel companies offer benefits just like they would to their own employees. So the recruiters, the managers, all that, they offer benefits to the traveler just like their own employees. So we get health insurance options through the company. Whether or not those are good options depends on the company. There's over 200 travel therapy companies out there. But that is always an option. And that is, I would say, what the majority of travelers do is they go through that insurance through their company. There are some issues with that, though.
So the main thing is to know is when you're on contract with a company, you're only employed while you're on that contract. So a typical contract might be 13 weeks, sometimes 6 months, it just depends. So when you're covered under their health insurance, typically you're only covered during that period when you're working. And this can cause problems when you're taking time off between contracts or switching between contracts. That's when people tend to have the most trouble.
Yeah.
So typically the way it works is you're eligible to be on the company's insurance while you're taking your contract with them. Sometimes their benefits will start on day one of your contract. Sometimes they don't, though. There are certain travel therapy companies that if it's your first or you're beginning a new contract with them and you weren't previously on contract with them right before that, you'll have to wait. There's a waiting period. Like it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month, it could be the first day of the next month. So it might just be, say if you unfortunately started on February the 2nd, you might have to wait until March the 1st with some companies to start their insurance.
Yep.
Whereas that wouldn't be as big of a deal if you started on February 25th and then you had to wait till March 1st. But each company is different, so it's important when you're looking into travel therapy companies that you ask these questions about when does their insurance kick in.
Yeah. And the other big thing here is that a lot of travel therapists, all the people that we advise, we talk to about travel therapy, we recommend working with more than one company. And the reason for that is because companies have different jobs. Some of them will pay higher or lower for different positions. So you want to work with different companies to get the best pay and the most job options. The issue with that is when you switch companies, you have this lapse in coverage like Whitney was talking about. Ideally, if you were a traveler, some travelers do this, they just work with one company their entire travel career. So say you work 3 years as a traveler and you take every contract through the same company, you take 2 weeks off between each contract, then it's really seamless for you. Once you start, you would basically have continuous coverage for that whole period. But if you're switching from one company to a different company that might have a better job for your next contract, and then switching to a different company that, say, you find that pays higher, and you switch every time, then that causes these lapses, and that's what makes it difficult to maintain insurance as a traveler.
Yeah. So like Jared said, if you were to stay with the same company, typically the way it works is they will continue to cover you for your insurance for a period of between 2 and 4 weeks between jobs. So they understand that sometimes you're gonna, you have to take off at least a weekend, if not a week or 2 weeks between jobs. So they say, okay, we're gonna continue your insurance as long as you pick up your new contract with us within this allotted time frame. I would say most of them are 30 days. I've known some that were 23 days, some that were 14 days. So you can usually carry over your insurance. But if you don't resume a new contract, say you decide to take a month and a half off between jobs, or if you take your next job with a different company, you do not get covered during that lapse, and that can be frustrating for people. So there's definitely pros and cons to taking the travel company insurance.
Yeah, one of the big pros, and the reason that we always did it, is because it's usually the most cost-effective option.
Yeah.
I know that on one of the companies we worked with, I had like a catastrophic type plan, and I think it only cost me like $22 a month. It was really, really cheap. Most companies will have some sort of plan similar to that where you're probably not going to be paying more than $100 a month for an individual. Like obviously if you're adding family members, it gets more expensive, but usually you can get a pretty affordable option through the travel company, whereas some of these other options are going to be more costly.
Yeah, so when you're on contract with the company, say you work for a big company like, for example, one that's run by AMN, which is a very large company, or even if it's a smaller company, you're on a group plan. And so your part of your premium is actually paid by your company, and they get a discount because it's spread out among the entire company. Versus when you sign up for an individual plan, you're having to pay that entire premium. So your costs are a lot higher because it's not offset by your company.
Yep.
I see a bunch of you guys are on. Again, if anybody's watching, if you just want to say hey in the comments, I see George is fired up about pizza.
Yeah.
George, I know you're a current traveler. What do you do for insurance? If you're a current traveler on here, let us know. Do you take the company insurance? Do you do your own? We'd be interested to hear from you.
Yeah. So before we move on and talk about the other options, one more thing about the company provided insurance. Those lapses that we talked about between jobs, there is a way to kind of cover that. And that's something called COBRA. And this is it's basically a coverage extension that goes beyond your end date with the company. So like Whitney said, the company pays for a portion of your premium. When you stop working for them, basically COBRA allows you to maintain that same coverage, but now you're paying the full premium. So your costs will go up, but at least you don't have a lapse in coverage. It basically it gives you some security there, especially if you're going to be driving across the country. You probably don't want to be uninsured going on a long car trip. It's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't want to be uninsured, period. You want to have continuous coverage just in case something happens.
Yeah, so for example, let's say you're working with a company, your contract ends, you have a 3-week break, and you're going to take the next contract with a different company. That 3 weeks is uncovered. COBRA can cover that time period. Well, the great thing about COBRA, though, like I said, it's a little bit more expensive, so a lot of people don't want to use it. Well, the great thing about COBRA is that it can be applied retroactively, meaning that you can take that 3-week break, that 3-week period between contracts, without signing up for it. And if you never needed it, then great, you just never had to sign up for it. At the end of that 3 weeks, let's say that you did have to go to an appointment, or you had something come up, you went to the emergency room, something like that, you can apply for it and it'll cover you retroactively from the end date before. Meaning that basically you get the best of both worlds. If you need the coverage, then you pay for it and you can use it. If you don't need the coverage, then you don't have to pay for it.
The other cool thing about that is you might not always know whether you're going to be off for longer than the 14 or 23 or 30-day period, and you might not always know if you're going to take your next contract with the same company, because sometimes you might be thinking, I'm just going to take a week off, but then it ends up being longer. Like right now, some people are having trouble finding jobs in January right now, and the job market has been a little bit down. So you might end up taking off longer than you thought you were going to, and maybe you thought you were going to take your job again with that same company, so your insurance was going to carry over like it always has in the past. But then you ended up not finding a job with them, so you had to open up your options and take a job with a different company. So now suddenly you're like, crap, I didn't end up being covered during that 2 weeks off like I thought it was going to be. And maybe you planned a doctor's appointment and you went, but then you're like, wow, I wasn't actually covered during that time. So then you could retroactively sign up for COBRA to cover you for that period.
Yeah, so we think that for the majority of travelers, that's the best option, to go with the company provided health insurance while you're on contract, and then use COBRA to cover those gaps. Either, if you're switching companies, if you're taking a long trip, whatever, use COBRA to cover that. Some travelers don't want to deal with any of that. So they don't want to deal with, signing up for COBRA. They don't want to deal with switching plans. And that's understandable because it's sometimes a hassle and you have to learn the new benefits of the new plan, especially if you, for some reason, most people don't switch companies every contract. But if you did, let's say you switch companies 4 times in a year, that is a lot of changing plans, a lot of signing up for things. And every company has different rules and things that you have to learn about. So some people don't want to deal with that. And there's really 3 other options if you don't want to deal with that. The first one that I think the majority of people do is going through the Affordable Care Act marketplace. And you can go there each year and sign up for a plan during open enrollment. And basically you would just sign up for that plan, pay the premium, and you would keep that plan and just decline the company provided insurance every time.
Yep, so that's what we've done in the past. And we'll get into talking a little bit more about what we have done and what we thought is the best. But the Affordable Care Act, there's also third-party options for signing up kind of off the marketplace plans. So Jared did some research on this, and he wrote a really good article that we can link to that kind of explains all these options a little more in detail. We haven't done these options ourselves, but I know there are options to go through third parties, like through an insurance broker, and they'll break down different options for you.
Yeah, so the marketplace, one of the big benefits there is that they offer subsidies for people with low income. Us as travel therapists, we have low income. The issue becomes, though, you're only eligible for subsidies if you aren't offered insurance through your workplace, which means while on contract, you're not really eligible for subsidies. So these plans, and it varies a ton from state to state. Some states are really great. They have plans that are pretty affordable. Some are really terrible that I've seen. So basically, between contracts for us, like say we're traveling, we leave the country in March. While we're traveling, we're going to be on one of those Affordable Care Act plans, and we will qualify for the subsidies because we have low income. Since we're travel therapists, we're taking part of the year off. And then in addition to that, we aren't offered health insurance through our company. We're not offered health insurance through our employer at the time. So, but if we wanted to keep one of those plans while we're working, like Whitney right now, if she wanted to be on an Affordable Care Act marketplace plan, she would have to give up those subsidies as soon as she's offered health insurance. And that makes the premium, in some cases, it could go up 10 times. It can be way higher. So my plan right now is through the marketplace, and with the subsidies included, it's only about $120 a month. But if I didn't have those subsidies, I think it would be somewhere around $400 a month.
Yeah.
And for families, it can be way higher than that.
So what Jared's getting at, some of you guys may know our story very well and some may not. Like I mentioned earlier, we take off longer periods of time right now from work and travel internationally for fun. Right now, I am on a contract, a travel therapy contract, but Jared's not working. So we're here in North Carolina, and I'm on a 13-week travel PT contract, and I'm taking the insurance through the travel company. But Jared is not working, so he qualifies for subsidies via his marketplace plan. Prior to me taking this job, I was also on a marketplace plan, but as soon as I resumed work, my marketplace plan would have gone through the roof because there's a question on there that says, do you have another option for insurance? Or like, are you offered, are you eligible for insurance through your current employer? And if you are, they take away those subsidies and they charge you a bunch more because they're like, get off this plan, you need to be on your employer's plan. So I switched over to my employer's plan. Now, some people won't do that. Some people would just prefer to maintain their same insurance, their own insurance throughout the entire year for various reasons. So maybe they don't want to deal with lapses in coverage. Maybe if they tend to have more medical expenses, they want to meet their deductible at the beginning of the year as they go through, just like a normal person with a normal job would. Whereas like with travel therapy, if you're switching employers and insurances all the time, we're never going to meet a deductible. I mean, my deductible starts over all the time. Like, I'll go on my marketplace plan for a little while, and then I'll go on my employer plan for a little while, and then I'll go back on my marketplace plan, and I'll go on my different employer's plan, and I never meet a deductible. But if you really need to, want to pay into your deductible and meet it for the year, maybe that's not the best option for you.
If you have a lot of medical expenses, it can make a lot more sense to have your own plan.
So then just in general, if you just want to have continuous coverage, for some people they would choose to do that. You just have to understand that while you are employed, your plan costs are going to go up because especially if you're on the marketplace plan, and I would imagine it's the same for those off marketplace plans. They're going to still be higher.
Yeah, so the off marketplace plans, they're very variable. The Affordable Care Act plans are kind of, for the most part, like I said, they vary a lot from state to state, but they're kind of homogenous, I would say. Like, they try to keep things similar across the board. It's not always the case, but third-party plans, if you go outside of the marketplace, obviously you're not eligible for any subsidies, and that's a big downside. If you were going to say you were going to take a lot of time off, like we're going to, if we applied for one of these third-party plans, we wouldn't get any of the subsidies that we're going to through the Affordable Care Act plan. But there are some that I've seen that might have a very low premium. They have some plan options that maybe aren't available in the Affordable Care Act, like catastrophic plans that maybe you're paying $100 a month. It doesn't really cover much, but in case something terrible happened, you would have some coverage.
Yeah. The last option that we haven't talked about yet that's kind of different than these, there are these health sharing ministry plans. This is a different option where sometimes there would be I know there's a Christian health share, and it's kind of like insurance, but I don't exactly know how to explain it.
They all have a religious affiliation, and they all have rules in terms. I think all the ones I know of are Christian related, and so basically you have to say that you're a Christian and you have to abide by certain rules. The issue with these plans, normally they're a little cheaper, and the reason they're cheaper is because they kind of select their applicants. They're not going to take people with a lot of chronic illnesses. They're not going to take people that have high risk behavior. So they're able to select their pool of applicants a little better, which means that they don't have as many payouts as maybe a regular insurance company would have. But the issue there is that this is not really insurance. They're not held accountable by any body like an insurance company would be. And so the issue is they can sometimes not pay for bills, like say something happened, especially if it's something against their regulations. So I know they have some rules about smoking, drinking, premarital sex, things like that. Pregnancy, there's all kinds of different regulations in there. And so you might have something come up and they wouldn't agree to pay for it. And that can be a big issue. So it's not held to the same standards as an insurance company. So you have a lower cost, but you also have more risk.
Yeah. So that's just another option that we've looked into that we know that some people have pursued.
Yeah.
We have some comments and some questions coming in. If y'all have questions about what we're talking about, please leave us a comment. And if you've gotten any value or learned anything from tonight's video, if you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up on the video, clicking the like button, we would appreciate that. So Armand says, Armand we know is a current travel PTA, I think. He's watched some of our videos before. Thanks for joining us, Armand. He says, hey, I have my own insurance. However, it's no good outside of my home state of Pennsylvania. So I pay for a plan that's generally useless when I'm on assignment in New York, but it was cheaper than Cobra coverage after my last coverage ended. So it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Something that we wanted to point out too is that all of these plans where you get like an individual plan either through the Affordable Care Act or through a third-party plan like off-marketplace plans, they are not always accepted all over the country. They might just be in your hometown or in your general area. So you need to make sure that the coverage applies everywhere if you're going to go that route. Because, yeah, say you're from New York, but you spend 9 months of the year doing travel assignments in California, and it doesn't cover you in California, then that's really no good for you. You would be a lot better off taking the insurance through the travel company. The travel company insurance is always going to cover you at your travel assignment location, obviously, because they're offering you that insurance for that job.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Thanks, Armand, for your feedback. Christine says, do you know of any options for students that will be traveling for clinical rotations? I'm a Wisconsin resident and currently on state health insurance, but I won't have a Wisconsin mailing address during my final year because I'm traveling out of the state for clinicals and I don't have any family in Wisconsin. So this is kind of the same exact issue. She has a plan that covers her only in her home state. So you might have to look into getting a temporary plan.
Yeah, it really would depend on where's your residency home gonna be while you're on clinical rotations, because whatever state that would be in, I would look through plans for that state and see if that transfers to wherever you're gonna be on assignment, whether you can use those benefits both at home and away. Because if you're not going to have any address at all during that time, then I don't know how you could sign up for any plan at all. But if you're going to be switching residences, then you could sign up for a plan through this whatever new address you have or whatever. And I would go through an Affordable Care Act plan, or if you're a student, you might qualify for Medicaid, and that's a pretty decent option for a lot of students because it's for low-income people, and normally students are pretty healthy anyway and don't really need the benefits, and so it's just kind of there if you need it.
So for Christine, would it be advisable to go on the Affordable Care Act Marketplace website and ask for help? They might have a helpline that you can call to get advice, or you could maybe go through a third-party broker to see if they have advice.
Yeah, and if you fill out there's a form, you can create a profile on the Affordable Care Act website, and it'll ask questions about your location and your income and all that, and it'll tell you the options. And if your income's below a certain threshold, it'll say you're eligible for Medicaid, and it'll give you a link to sign up for that.
Hey Kaylee, thanks for watching. Hi Laura, thanks for watching. If anybody else is watching, if y'all have questions or input about the whole insurance issue, it's certainly an issue that comes up for a lot of people. I'm telling you, we get questions about it all the time.
And honestly, there's no perfect choice, and there's really no great option for anyone. There's always going to be some hassle, like we talked about. If you get your individual plan, it might not cover you everywhere. If you go through the travel insurance company, you might have to change plans often. You might have to use Cobra to cover gaps, and that's more expensive. If you go through a health share ministry, it might cost you less than some of the other plans, but then you might not be covered for everything. So there's honestly no great option. But like I was saying earlier, I think the majority of travelers are best off going through the travel therapy company's insurance while on contract, and then using Cobra to cover gaps, and only signing up for Cobra if you needed the insurance during that gap.
Yeah.
So, like I said, go through that period of time off. If you don't need it for any reason, don't worry about signing up. If you do need it, sign up. It'll cover you retroactively. It used to be that there was an issue there because there would be a penalty if you didn't have insurance for a certain number of months per year. That penalty is no longer there. So there's really no downside that I know of to doing that, taking the company insurance and using Cobra to cover the gaps.
Yeah, I think the only risk there would be if something majorly catastrophic happened. You were in a major accident and obviously you would be unable at that time, say you became unconscious and were unable to physically submit paperwork to retroactively cover yourself for Cobra. So
I would
there's
imagine
a
there would be
risk.
some leniency there, but yeah.
Right. So there's definitely a risk, and that's a risk that some people are not willing to take. They want to be continuously covered because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and the retroactive thing is just a benefit. You could always just sign up, and if you don't need it, you just pay the premium.
Yeah.
No big deal. At least you're still covered.
But I believe it's up to 60 days you have after the date of your last employment to sign up. So, for example, those situations where you didn't realize that you were going to end up being off work for longer than a couple weeks, that would be a good opportunity to use it up to 60 days after. And how long can you use Cobra? Is it 90 days?
I don't think there's a limit to how long you can use it. You just have to sign up for it. If there is, it's a long limit. It might be 2 years. It's a long
really?
time that
Okay.
you can stay on it.
And if any of you guys have been, a lot of you, if you're students and you haven't had to deal with this before off of your parents' insurance or whatnot, you may not be familiar with Cobra, but Cobra is not just for travel therapists. Cobra is very well known among all employers and employees.
Yeah,
as
the
an
purpose of
option.
it, like when he was talking about, people maybe would want to, maybe you're 3/4 of the way through meeting your deductible and you lose your job in July and you want to stay on that coverage because if you pick a different plan at that point, then you're going to have to start over from zero. So basically, Cobra just allows you to keep that coverage even though you lost your job.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Or, if it's just for a normal person who's become unemployed unexpectedly
Yeah.
until they're able to resume work at a different job, they have to have options for that. So, but it's an option for someone like us who has kind of transient work as a travel therapist.
Yep. So then the only other option, those are really the four main. The only other one is to just go without insurance, and some people do that. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend doing that. When I was younger and felt more invincible than I do now, maybe I would have done it, but not anymore. It's not worth the risk. I mean, the primary cause of bankruptcy, I believe, in the United States is health-related bills and not having adequate health insurance. So I don't think that's a good option for almost anybody, especially travel therapists. We make enough money that we can afford to pay, even if it's a little more expensive.
Yeah. So just as a kind of recap of Jared and I's choices, we've always used the travel therapy company insurance while on contract. And then we just deal with the hassle of switching because we have switched between companies before. We encourage people to work with different companies, even though there are some hassles, but we've always dealt with that hassle if we switched to a different company for our next job or if we took time off between. So far, we have not signed up for Cobra in between. We've relied on knowing that we could sign up retroactively if we needed to between.
Yeah, we've been lucky enough to, one, we don't plan any medical appointments between contracts to avoid that, and two, not have any issues come up between contracts.
Yeah.
So we have always had that as an option when we're switching companies, but we never have had to use it.
So for our first 3.5 years, we worked primarily back-to-back contracts. So we would work a contract, resume a new contract pretty much the next Monday. So we would usually only have 2 or 3 days between contract that we technically weren't covered anyway, unless the new company with which we took a job didn't start on day one, in which case we might have that whole first 30 days of our contract uninsured, but with the understanding that we could have gotten Cobra if we needed to.
Yep.
Now, when we started in 2018 taking more time off between contracts, the first year we took about 6 months off, and we were out of the country for 5 out of those 6 months. And we decided just to not get insurance during that period. We really weren't sure what we were going to do, but we were out of the country for most of it. So we decided not to get health insurance within the U.S., but we did get travel insurance during that time because we were traveling internationally. So we had travel insurance that covered us.
Yeah, so we would still be covered for catastrophic things in that situation. Like if for any reason we had to be, God forbid, airlifted back to the U.S. or something like that, they would cover those kind of things.
Yeah, and travel insurance is very affordable. We've gotten plans for like $30 to to $100
Very affordable, and
for 6 months.
yeah,
You know?
and on top of that, medical care in these other countries is usually very cheap too. So really, you don't, in my opinion, you don't need health insurance in the U.S. while you're traveling, especially to places like Southeast Asia or Europe or wherever where things are very cheap. If you needed just something routine, or you had some issue come up, like, you know, an illness, you could probably go and get medical treatment for less than the cost of your premium in the United States, and then just basically having that travel insurance as catastrophic coverage. That's how we have approached it.
Yeah, well, the only issue would be is if you did have to get airlifted back to the U.S., well, once they brought you back to the U.S., you wouldn't be covered.
Yeah.
So the second time that we took an extended period of time off, this past year we took off another like 6 months or so between work. We decided to sign up for our own plan through the Affordable Care Act marketplace, as well as get our travel insurance, because part of that time we were traveling internationally, but part of it we weren't working, we were just in the U.S. Like we did a road trip earlier in 2019 while we were not employed. So there was going to be a lot more time there where we were going to be within the U.S. but not employed. So therefore, we didn't want to bother with COBRA. It was just too long of a period, in our opinion, to do COBRA. And we qualified for subsidies, like Jared said, and we did the marketplace plan. So
Yeah.
it was pretty affordable.
And those subsidies made our plan last year, I think it was $100 or less per month. So it was very affordable, and that was all because our income was low and because we didn't have health insurance offered by any other outside parties, like, you know, employer or whatever.
Yeah, and then like I said, when I picked up this current travel PT contract I'm doing, I switched back off my marketplace plan to my employer-sponsored plan. Unfortunately, the employer that I'm working with right now has day one insurance, so I begin to be immediately covered on day one with them. And then in February, when I finish this contract and my insurance coverage with them will end, I will go back on my Affordable Care Act plan or sign up for a new marketplace plan to cover us for when we go to South America later this year and are taking some more time off between jobs.
Yep. So basically, just to wrap everything up, we think that taking the insurance through the employer is the best option for most people through the travel company, using COBRA to cover the gaps. Even though it is a hassle to switch companies, partially because of health insurance, we definitely think that it's still worth it to work with more than one company and switch companies, because in some cases that can mean the difference between $100 to $200 a week more money that you'd make.
Yeah.
So, you know, having some hassle or maybe paying a little bit extra money for health insurance, maybe $100 a month, is not very much when you're going to be making a lot more for the whole length of a contract. If you're going to be taking extended periods of time off and you're not going to have a health insurance option, and as a travel therapist we make less taxable income, then going through the marketplace and getting a plan with a subsidy is almost always going to be very affordable, and it's a really good option. I mean, the plans are pretty good as well, at least the ones for Virginia that we've had.
Yeah, that's one other thing that we didn't really address. People will ask us all the time, like, well, is the travel therapy company insurance good or not? It depends. They're all different. So most of them will offer different tiers. So when you guys are looking into travel therapy companies, you just need to ask them, like, if they can send you their benefits package information. It'll usually be a PDF that has all their benefits on it, and they'll show you, okay, you can have like this gold level plan or the silver level plan or whatever. Sometimes you'll have like a high deductible, low premium that has like a health savings account. We've done those before. If you have a family, they might have a family plan. So you just need to ask them, but usually they'll have different tiers and different levels, and it'll tell you if it's like a PPO or whatever, and usually which, you can even browse the website and see which doctors are in network and that sort of thing.
Yep.
So it's going to depend, but usually they're going to have a variety of options, and we haven't had any trouble with it. But again, we don't have really any long-term health complications. So if you're someone that knows that you have health problems and you use your healthcare services more, it may mean more to you to delve deeper into these plans and decide if they're right for you, or whether it's just going to be better to keep your own because you know that plan and you know what it covers and you want to meet your deductible for the year. So it's a very personal decision, but we're just trying to educate you guys on what your options are. Like I said, Jared wrote a really thorough article covering everything we've talked about tonight, so I will link to that article in the comments when we get done.
The article has links in there to different things that we've talked about. But yeah, I think 45 minutes of rambling about health insurance. We thought this was going to be another short video, and it never is. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you got some value out of that, and maybe make a little bit more informed decisions regarding your own health insurance. Yeah. If you did get value, please like this video, tag other travelers that might be interested in the different options, share this video, and tune in next week. And like we mentioned, if you're going to be in the Raleigh area or the Denver area and you can come to one of our meetups, that would be awesome. We'd love to see you guys.
Yep. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and feel free to reach out with us to us if you all have questions. If you're looking to get started with travel therapy and you need advice, we've got a lot of information on our website at traveltherapymentor.com. You can review our old videos on our Facebook page. This is kind of the boring stuff, but it's something we all have to know about. We have to have health insurance. So with this topic, and we've covered many other topics. And as always, if you guys need recommendations on which companies and recruiters that we work with, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you out with that as well.
Yep. And those recommendations are personalized for your situation. So we've got a ton that we work with, but some are better for certain situations, certain areas, certain settings than others.
Or even benefits. Like I can definitely point you in the right direction. Like people have asked us, these are my priorities. I need somebody who's going to have day one health insurance. We can point you in the directions of which companies offer day one health insurance. Some people might have priorities with different benefits, like do they offer a 401k with matching and those sorts of things, or maybe they just want higher pay or they want mentorship or whatever. We can point you in the right direction with those types of things too if you want to reach out to us.
Yep. All right. So thanks for watching. See you guys next week.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.